forward to your talk.
Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be speaking at the World Hope Forum. I thank you both. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Sansone. I have a company called NY Textile Lab, a design and consulting company. And I'm also an assistant professor of textiles at Parsons School of Design. In addition, I am a FiberShed affiliate. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with FiberShed, FiberShed is a nonprofit, an international nonprofit organization that works to build regional regenerative textile systems, climate beneficial textiles all over the world. So NY Textile Lab is a design and consulting company for designers who want to source regionally or locally and ethically. Our biggest mission is really to move designers to the beginning of the value chain. Often designers don't enter the value chain. Typically, they don't enter the value chain until they're buying textiles or yarns from a distributor. And sometimes they enter the value chain even later when they're purchasing textiles from a supplier. And, you know, designers are problem solvers, and it doesn't make sense for us to enter the value chain so late when we're trying to tackle these problems that we're seeing, the socioeconomic problems and the problems with climate change. So when we move to the beginning of the value chain, we can build deep value flows into our products. Like, for example, we can invest in climate beneficial fibers. We can partner with farms that are practicing biodiversity in their farming practices. We can address localism by partnering with mills and manufacturers that are close by. We also work to grow bioregional textile supply networks. So we bring designers and manufacturers and farmers together around this very important mission of carbon farming. And NY Textile Lab also develops scalable machine grade yarns and textiles that are sourced, spun, knit, and woven all within 300 miles of New York City. So what are bioregional textiles? This is a map from the United States Department of Agriculture, and it shows boundaries that aren't defined by political boundaries or economic systems, but by natural boundaries, like desert provinces, broadleaf forests, for example, Great Plains regions. The bioregion where I live in the Hudson Valley, New York area is the Northeastern Highland ecoregion of New York State. So when we look at textile systems through the lens of bioregions, we can consider designing within the capacities and limitations of particular ecosystems. We can use what's available, like regionally grown fibers or even natural dyes potentially. So why is this important? Regionally grown biodiversity and regionally grown textiles are really important to rebalance our natural systems. Conventionally grown cotton and polyester make up 85% of world fiber production. And there's a dominance of certain fibers in the industry like merino and cashmere. And often the farming of these materials is terrible for the environment and for soil health, particularly cashmere. And, you know, when you look at economically, we produce only 2% of the textiles and clothing that we wear in the United States. So by looking at a bioregional network, we can celebrate and foster diversity, both economic as well as material diversity. Our current textile systems largely operate on a linear model of extraction, consumption, and waste, and many of you know that. So as designers, you know, we can take the two ends of that linear model and bend them into a circle. Even recycling has limitations, and we know that synthetic fibers end up dispersed back into the environment. There's a limitation to recycling. So when you produce within the framework of bioregions, you can really model natural systems and this idea of circularity, and even soil to soil, so that things can grow out of the ground and be put right back into the ground. One important initiative that we're working on is to grow a carbon farm network, which is an interconnected group of farmers who want to use regenerative practices on their farms, and designers who want to access climate beneficial fibers. When we grow bioregional economies, we can scale deep within our communities and grow local businesses like our farms, our brands, our manufacturers around this really important mission of carbon farming. So what is carbon farming? Carbon farming is the implementation of farming practices that reduce, sequester, and mitigate greenhouse gas emissions on farmland. We use United States Department of Agriculture software and data collection as quantifying tools. So we're actually quantifying how much carbon we're sequestering into the soils on our farms that we're working with. This is a picture of designers visiting one of our farms during our Carbon Farm Tour. And this is an event that we run in tandem with New York Textile Month. And if anyone here is unfamiliar with New York Textile Month, it's a month-long festival in New York City that is organized by our friends at Trend Union. And we hold a Carbon Farm Tour where we invite designers to come up, walk on the lands of the farms, learn about growing ecologies and about composting and how to start to look at the soil and how we can, as designers, invest in these materials. And we have a panel discussion. It's a really lovely event where we can be outside together. This year we had over 60 participants come up and join us. So farms use specific on-farm practices that are designed to take the carbon out of the air and put it back into the soils and the plants. And so you see a list here. This is a list, and the protocols are dependent on what the needs of the farms are, really. The person that you're seeing standing in these pictures holding dirt and grass is Gibson Durnford. He's our agricultural planner. And Gibson is an environmental scientist. And he also, in addition to working on our carbon farm plans, he coordinates east of the Hudson lands for the Watershed Agricultural Council, which is an organization that helps farms in the Catskill and Hudson region use best management practices on their farms so that they're keeping the watershed clean, because the lands in the Hudson Valley and Catskill area are the watershed to the 9 million people in New York City. Carbon farming is becoming really important to brands and designers. There's a large international movement to serve brands through the California Fiber Shed. And if you all stick around for Rebecca Burgess's presentation, she is the executive director and founder of Fiber Shed, and she'll talk more about that larger movement. Here in New York, we're using a Sourcebook that I developed a few years ago to capture farms that are signed on to carbon farm plans. So this Sourcebook was developed as a tool to connect the designers and farmers directly together. So again, moving the designer to the beginning of that value chain. So we developed this Sourcebook with a research collaborator from Cornell University named Helen Trejo. It shows a sampling of 300 a sampling of only a sliver of the 300 farms that we have in New York State. We have 300 fiber farms here. There are 72 hand-knit samples in the book. There are a few copies that exist where you can actually access and look through the books. And then there's a digital download available on my website. But this book, it has pictures of the farms with a description of the farm in it, and the description was written in the voice of the farms. We asked the farmers to submit, you know, how they wanted to be described in the book. So it's really in the words of the farmer. And the book also contains farm specifications about types of fiber and the volume that the farms are producing. This is one of the original carbon farm plan pilot farms called Faraway Farm Alpaca. They're featured in the book. And you can see the verification graphic on the page of the farm. This was designed by our affiliate organization, Fibershed, this graphic. So this graphic is a way to illuminate the deep value flow that I was speaking of climate beneficial and carbon farming, connecting us to the land as designers. So we have 8 farms in our carbon farm network currently. They're signed on to our carbon farm plans. So beginning in February, around this time of year, we reach out to our farms with commitments to purchase fiber. We request the volume, type of fiber, and color. The shearing takes place from April to the beginning of June. We collect fiber that has been sheared and skirted. Skirting means that you remove the short fibers, you know, off of the entire fleece that you shear, and then it's bagged, and then we pick it up. So this is a picture of one of our farms that we buy wool from. So this is Romney sheep from Wedding Hill Farm. The Romney are a long wool breed of sheep, and their fibers is a coarser wool than the merinos that we see cultivated in other parts of the world. And in the United States, merinos and the finer wools are cultivated on the West Coast. So, you know, as we continue to address the climate crisis, we see that parts of the world, and if we're looking at the United States, the western coast of the United States is getting drier, and you know, the eastern side is getting wetter. So this is why bioregional development is so deeply important. So we can start to really look at our capacities and limitations and design within those. So these Romney sheep do well in our region, the long wools. They are a dual purpose breed, so farmers like to breed them because they're large, and you get a lot of yield for the sheep, for each animal. Since the micrometer refers to the diameter of the fiber, the thicker the diameter, the coarser the fiber it is. So we have some coarser wool, and we're blending it with alpaca because we happen to have a lot of alpaca in New York as well. And we can blend these fibers together to make a really lovely yarn that is very functional for a wider range of applications. So these are 2 of our alpaca farms. The one on the left is Little Creek Farm Alpaca. They're a larger alpaca farm. She's one of the largest breeders in the United States, the farmer who runs this farm. On the right-hand side is a smaller farm called Faraway Farm. I showed you their farm page. They sell raw fiber as well as added value product like the skeins that you're seeing. So you see their beautiful colors come right from the animals. So many of the farmers that we're working with also sell products, and they sell to fiber festivals, or they sell at farmers markets, or online in their stores. So we're having our fiber washed at a few mini mills. So our objective is really to grow a decentralized network so that many stakeholders benefit. So the benefit is about growing small businesses, because you know, typically our economic system grows businesses in a centralized way. It's just how capitalism works. So we're trying to work in a lateral growth logic and include many participants. So we're having we're having our fiber scoured at these mini mills. The mini mills, they typically process fiber for handcrafting yarn. Now our yarn is machine grade yarn, so we can't get it necessarily processed at these mills, but they can definitely wash it for us. So this is just showing typically how some of these mini mills wash with sinks and nets and pulleys all by hand. And they also use top loading washing machines. And this just shows the fiber drying. They dry the fiber on wooden racks on mesh netting. And these are all the colors of the animals, no dyeing. And then we collect the clean fiber and deliver to the spinning facility. So we rent vans, we borrow trucks and stuff our cars full of wool. This year we produced close to 800 pounds of fiber. We processed that into yarn. In the 2021 yarn production, we used one spinning mill to spin our yarn. And, you know, we're really disconnecting from the market system, like the rigorous schedule of the commercial market, like clothing and apparel. We're really working within the agrarian calendar. So we're creating yarn when the shearing happens. That's when we're collecting it. So we're following these agrarian systems that are much more closely linked to natural circular systems. This just shows the wool being carded. So this is a step that the wool takes to get combed. And then it turns into like a roving that is fed into these spinning machines and made into yarn. And this is some of our yarn. The colors are all derived from the animal fibers themselves. There are no dyes used here. And this is a blend of alpaca and wool. And you know, the yarn has to be very consistent. That's really important because we're putting this yarn on machines. And these are some of the knitting factories that we're working with. So again, working with multiple businesses. Each knitting factory specializes in a certain type of knitting. And this is the path that our textiles take. This is the local path. You can see, so this is a map of New York State, and you can see Long Island jutting out at the bottom. So this is a very small circumference and a small carbon footprint that we're taking on our travels. And these are some designers in our Carbon Farm network. So we're all using this yarn, including New York Textile Lab. What you're seeing pictured here is Woolhide. So Woolhide's making these beautiful sweatshirt. She calls them sweatshirt sweaters made out of our yarn. All these colors are natural. This is Vincent James Design, and they made these stunning duster sweaters, duster cardigan sweaters, just really beautiful. And this is Christina Wang, and she did something very innovative with our fiber. She actually tufted it into a lining of this jacket. I'm working with a product design company called Plia, and we're working on a blanket program. So you can see some of the designs that we're creating here for very plush high-end blankets. For some more blankets. And then these are just some knit products that from New York Textile Lab, my company. So we're making socks and sweaters and knit hats, cowls. Here's some of our sweaters. We have some new sweaters and hats that we're going to be selling this year. And this is the final image that just shows some of our woven development and designing with around wovens as well. And these are all of these yarns are used on mechanized looms. And that's it for today. Thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you, Laura. It's so good to see you and to see that your project is moving along quickly, as far as I can see, and expanding. So that makes me super happy.
Thank you.
You're a great example for us all.
Thank you so much, Lee.
So now we're going to